Good afternoon, Flint Rotary. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Flint, and today it is Friday, June 2nd, which means there are only 28 days standing between me and Anne Marie. Nobody's counting. That also means that here we're in the last month of the Rotary year. It means also that it is Pride Month, so happy Pride, everyone. And today is National Donut Day, National Rotisserie Chicken Day, National Rocky Road Ice Cream Day, that we like to eat, and I Love My Dentist Day. So I don't see Dr. Gist here today. It could be that everybody is loving their dentist. On a more sober note, it's also National Gun Violence Awareness Day. So there's a campaign to wear orange this weekend in honor of those whose lives have been taken or affected by gun violence. And so with that in mind, let's just take a moment of silence to honor those lives. Thank you. So today we have a change in program. We will be hearing from Erin Stone from the Ally Challenge a little bit later this summer. We're working to reschedule her, but due to some scheduling conflicts, we came up with, I shouldn't say we, Lynetta flew into action and has delivered for us today a spectacular program that will feature our very own county prosecutor, David Layton. And so we will be hearing from him very shortly. But let's first begin, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as Rotarians, we try to live by the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And for our inspirational message today, I'd like to invite up Ashley Prue.
Very Genesee County Day, because you get to hear from my boss later. As President Elizabeth mentioned, June is Pride Month, which, if you're unaware, it honors lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, or LGBTQ members of our community. Pride Month helps us recognize the progress we have made for the LGBTQ community, but also reminds us of how much work we have left to do. In many states, laws are being passed to take their rights away, and in some cases locally, members of our own LGBTQ community are under attack simply for existing. Our LGBTQ community members deserve not only to exist, but to be celebrated for who they are. Therefore, in honor of Pride Month, I have selected a poem by a poet and philosopher named Elsa Gidlow. She was born on December 29, 1898, and her book, On a Gray Thread, which was published in 1923, is believed by historians to be the first collection of openly lesbian love poetry published in North America. This poem specifically is called Life's Leaders. Their clouded wine, their whited bread, we cannot take and call it good. Yet sorry or fair, life grudges us, who have no taste for common food. We must go hungry, long life through, aching and hungry to the end, betrayed by pity into chains. Reason tries vainly to transcend. Are we not sadly prodigal? We spend ourselves without restraint. Yea, we let beauty break our hearts and bleed for love until we faint. Yet it is not the thorns, the shame, not the hurt body's weak distress. Our bitterest crucifixion lies in man's abject unworthiness. From life's rough cloth and flying threads, from dust, from passion, dreams, and pain, from the dear madness men call love, from faith that lies beyond the brain. We shape the only deathless soul the mortal man will ever know. Behold his gratitude, these stones. They say it is by the heart we grow. Still we build quietly and wait. The heart may break, the heart is frail, but a stern, strange ecstasy befriends us, and we dare not fail. The hand that points the solemn way may be a wanton hand at best. The great word echoing in our souls may be aboard God's casual jest. We cannot guess, we only know 'tis written by some awful pen. We must be torches sacrifice to light the way for lesser men. So I have never been great at analyzing poetry, but when I read this, it made me think that unless we are a member of a marginalized community, we do not truly know the struggles that people within that community face, and we do not know the struggles of our fellow individuals. It made me think about how, as we approach life and service, and even when we apply the 4-way test, we must do our best to light the way for those who may not automatically come from a place of acceptance and understanding towards marginalized communities. And that does not always mean that they are bad people. We must be the torch that lights the way, to educate ourselves to the extent possible about the struggles others face, even when we don't understand, so that we can lead by example through love, acceptance, and doing our very best to lead from a place of compassion for all. It is my hope that this message will inspire us to speak up when we see injustices, and that we will always do our very best to work towards an equitable community, nation, and world for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Rotarians and guests, please enjoy your meal. And just as a quick announcement, I know Amy is outside right now. If you had wanted to purchase your lunch ticket, if you're planning to attend only the Friday portion of the club meeting that will be part of the district conference, then you are welcome to do that now. And we'll have more information about district conference, whatnot, a little bit later. Until then, enjoy your meal. All right, friends on Zoom. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to go ahead with our program portion. I wanted to start, as always, with a few announcements. So Jim Richardson was kind enough to organize our last service opportunity, which was working with Edible Flint on the Garden Starters Distribution Day. And being the thoughtful, kind-hearted person that he is, he also wrote us a very nice thank you note to the entire club on behalf of Edible Flint. Yes, sir.
It's important that I clarify. It's my good luck.
Thank you for being that honest. It is the truth. All right, so thank you, Jane, for helping. Yes, for writing the thank you notes, and to Jim for delivering it. So just quickly, it says, "Dear Flint Rotary members, thank you for your gift of volunteers and encouragement to the many folks planning their vegetable growing and dreaming of their own tomatoes and basil. Flint's communities were active all day from your 7:30 a.m. work to the you missed your garden pickup and will be at Edible Flint Farm on Monday or Tuesday task. Edible Flint especially thanks you for your work on May 20th to start the arrival of many garden transplants. Nearly 900 garden kits were assembled and picked up by 280 folks, individuals, community gardeners, and churches. Your work began many gardens in Genesee County." And she goes on to provide some additional information about that. I don't know if any of you saw the little blurb on our club Facebook page, but there was like a 15-second video from the person who's the director of Edible Flint. And she offered just a real quick snapshot about the impact of that. So if you haven't had a chance to see that quick little Facebook video, I'd encourage you to go check it out, because it really gives you a sense that a few hours of team effort can really have an outsized impact in terms of addressing hunger and healthy food growing in our own community. So thank you for everybody who was part of that day. I would also like to take a moment to remind folks that we have our district conference coming up at the end of the month. And so at this point, I know not a lot of folks from the club have registered, and that's okay. Because there are opportunities. If you would like to register, you can go online there. But out of curiosity, I know that some district conferences in the past have had a very nominal fee, and the fee may have been a little higher this time. Just show of hands. Is there anybody who thinks that maybe the cost is a barrier? And if not, okay. So that was just a curiosity. So if you are interested in the entire conference, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's $200. If you are only interested in Saturday's activities, that's a discounted rate of $150. If you're unable to participate in the whole conference, but we still want you to come to our club meeting, which will be held that Friday. The club meeting only is $25. It will be held at the Gateway Center, and that's where we're going to help launch the entire conference. So if you haven't yet registered, please try to do so within the next week or so that we can have a good showing from our local club. Anything else? Golf outing, right? All right, golf outing. If there's any golfers in the room, there is an optional golf outing that is Thursday, June 22nd. They're taking registration. I'm sorry, Friday morning. Thank you for that clarification. Friday morning. So before our club meeting kicks things off for the conference. You can also sign up for that golf outing as part of your registration process. There is an added fee for the golf outing. So if you've got questions about it, I know George is here and is, I'm sure, more than happy to speak to that.
We were anticipating maybe $50. Right now we have 2 signed up. We have a course. So please consider that as a commitment course. I understand it's a good trying to get retired. We can go much. So we're hoping we can get a few more folks to sign up. If not, then we're going to have to cancel that.
All right, so there you go. Okay, thanks for that, George. And then I also want to share an announcement about our Spring Rotary Mile. The registration to sign up to volunteer is now open. You can do that either through the link that was sent in your email earlier this week, or if you've got a smartphone and you want to scan the QR code, that takes you directly to the registration link. The Crim Festival of Races is going to be on August 26th, and as in the last several years, our own Mike Chafee is stepping up in order to host a breakfast, and it's a really good breakfast. I can vouch for that. For those who are so inclined, he also usually provides a Bloody Mary bar in the morning. So if you need to start your volunteering day with a little bit of a pick-me-up, then that's there for you. But the volunteer roles, a lot of us end up doing things like traffic control, which mostly means looking very official in our yellow vest and telling cars not to drive through the course. But it's a lot of fun because you get to spend the morning with some Rotarians and you get to cheer on thousands of racers. So if you, yes, sir.
I want to know what bike's doing for the runner. By the time I get there, he's closed up.
Oh, so you have to get.
We'll stay over late for you, Jerry.
That's for Jerry, yeah.
Well, the other thing too is we have the opportunity for runners to take a picture with a Rotary plaque. That would be actually his house.
That's right.
Margary's and margaritas for the entire morning.
All right. Yeah.
I would consume that all by myself.
No, we're not going to. And then I also want to make mention that, as we announced last time, Cynthia from the food bank, who has kindly prepared our meals and helped with the serving of the meals for the last few years, she retired. And so if you signed the retirement card that was on the registration table when you came in, thank you. If you didn't have a chance to do that, we'll make sure that that card stays out there. So on your way out, you can write a little message for her, and then we'll send that to her along with whatever folks have contributed towards her retirement. So thank you for folks that already made a contribution either in the Red Cup last week or through the square on our website. And if you didn't yet have a chance to do that, then the chance is still open. We'll wait a couple days and then see what comes in and then send that all to her to wish her well in her retirement. The last note I had here in terms of announcements was from our visiting assistant governor, Al Tucker.
Yeah, shameless plug for a golf outing. I would encourage anybody, if you can, golf in the district conference first. But if that's not enough golf for you, my club, Greater Flint Sunrise, also has a golf outing over at Sugarbush. I left one brochure at a table July 21st. So please consider helping us help the kids of Genesee. All the proceeds from golf outing go to scholarship community grant benefiting the kids of Genesee. So if you're a golfer and want a good time with other Rotarians, they can join us at Greater Flint Sunrise.
Great, thank you, Alan. And just for the folks on Zoom, he was sharing that Greater Flint Sunrise has their golf outing on July 21st. And so if you are interested in golfing in that, you are most welcome and are encouraged to sign up for Greater Flint Sunrise. Any other announcements from the floor? Okay, then any health and welfare updates? Hope everybody's healthy and doing well. All right, and I do want to take a few moments to recognize folks on Zoom. And yes, so guests we have, so if you are a guest here today, would you mind standing and your Rotarian can introduce you?
This is Mike Barrett. Long-time friend and local realtor, so he's been joining the club. So.
We're breaking him into the back table.
Oh, good. He's funny, good spot to fit in with us there. And I know we have a guest through our guest speaker today as well, so former Rotarian and returning guest today, John Potworth. We're very glad to have you. And then joining us on Zoom today, we have Gary, Ed, and Amy. So thanks for being here, everyone. All right, now it's everybody's favorite time. It's time for the 50-50, and helping us today, we have District Governor Mike Chapey. Get out those tickets.
Cool. Are you recording this? Oh, it's in. Okay. You get
All
third
right,
place.
for third prize, 715-474. 715-474. Oh, dear.
There's it. Good. Here, this was mine.
Okay, and like Stacy said, claiming second prize, which is 715-394.
There you go.
Perfect. That's right. Jerry number 2. Jerry number 1 is hoping that bodes well for his next ticket.
Okay, this one's mine.
So the winning ticket for first prize is 715-399. Ah, Marie,
Great.
good. All right, the back table has it. All right, that brings us to our guest speaker today, and introducing our special guest is our own Dominique Clemens.
I've got the hard job of introducing someone that really doesn't need much of an introduction, so I'll do the best I can, and even though I'm a politician, I'll try to keep it brief. David Layton was first elected Genesee County prosecutor in 2004, which happens to be one of the only prosecutors I remember, as I was in 6th grade when he became prosecutor. And he is now serving in his 5th term in that capacity as our county's chief law enforcement officer. Prior to being elected, Prosecutor Layton served 12 years on the Flint Township Board of Trustees, both as a trustee and later as a township clerk. Mr. Layton is a past president of the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan, past president of the Genesee County Bar Association, and he has also been an active member of the Board of Directors for Voices for Children. You may also recognize him in the fall, Friday nights and some Saturdays as an officiant for many of our high school football games, where he has been serving for quite some time in that. But I have had the great opportunity to work with him both as a commissioner and now as county clerk, serving as clerk of the court. And one of the things that I will really say about our prosecutor is that he is an innovative leader, but also is someone that puts forth the value of service leadership. He's an elected official that rolls up his sleeves and gets down into work. As corporate counsel for the county, he doesn't just send his staff to meetings, he's there at the board meetings himself, giving advice to the Board of Commissioners. As our prosecutor, as an attorney, when he is short-staffed, he himself rolls up his sleeves, he gets to work, and sometimes that means he himself practices in the courtroom, which not many prosecutors across our state do that. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our wonderful speaker, my friend, my colleague, and a political mentor.
Dom, thank you. That's very, very kind. I appreciate the kind words. I've been privileged to have this job for 19 years. Next year will be 20. I'm the longest serving prosecuting attorney in our county's history. And it's been quite an honor. And without making any big announcements, frankly, I intend to continue. So we'll leave that for another day. What I thought I would do here, is I would give you a little course in prosecution 101. And during this course, we'll morph into prosecution 400 level. So we're going to start off by saying that, are you aware that the prosecuting attorney's office is the largest law firm in Genesee County? And I get to be the head of it. So, of course, the first question is, why do I get to be the head of it? And that's because the prosecuting attorney, by the Constitution of Michigan Constitution of 1963, is elected to a 4-year term. Prior to 1963, they were 2-year terms. And I would be okay with if they changed it to a 6-year term, like a U.S. Senator, or an 8-year term, like a Supreme Court Justice. But currently it's a 4-year term. The prosecuting attorney is elected on a partisan ballot, which means obviously you run under a party label. I run as a Democrat. The Republicans may put up a candidate. They usually don't. There has not been a countywide elected Republican prosecutor since the 1950s, just as a footnote. I run the same year as the president runs. So if the president's on the ballot, or a candidate to be president, I too, or the prosecuting candidate is on the ballot, and the next election is 2024. So that's how I got to be prosecutor. First elected, as Dom said, in 2004. That was a contested election. I've actually only had one contested election since. And fortunately, I think we got about 70% of the vote. So I say we run the largest law firm in Genesee County. Here are the numbers. We have 80.5 employees. The half is obviously a part-timer. We didn't cut her in half. She's a part-timer. We have 37 attorneys in 8 divisions spread across 2 buildings in downtown Flint, the old historic courthouse, which you know, and the McCree building, which back in the day was the Montgomery Ward building, and today houses the district courts and more than half of my staff in that building. We cover dockets in 20 courts. It's actually probably more if you count the referees. And we do more than 8,000 cases a year. Now, one of the parts of that number that I think is interesting is that 8,000 cases don't make it into the court. Thousands of cases come into the prosecutor's office every single year for review of probable cause to determine if we should issue a warrant. Many of those we reject. In fact, when I interview a prospective new prosecutor, one of the questions I often ask is, if a grizzled, nasty detective who hasn't slept in 3 days, hasn't seen her or his family in a week, comes in and slams some papers on the desk and says to you, I want my warrant and I want it now. The alleged perpetrator is sitting in the county jail. Can you, prospective assistant prosecutor, tell that grizzled, nasty detective no, if you don't see probable cause in that police report that you're being presented? And obviously, the answer has to be, yes, I can say no to that grizzled, nasty detective, because that's not an easy thing to do. But we reject thousands of cases a year that the judges never see. The judges have busy dockets, but there's all these cases we've reviewed that we've said, you got to go back and get us more, or we can't issue the warrant. So that's where that 8,000 case number comes from. Most people think that what we do is prosecute criminals. And that's what we're best known for, right? We're best known for the prosecution of the dollar family store murderer, for the serial stabber who went around stabbing people some years back, for the carjacker and the armed robbers. And we do that, and we do that well, but that's not all we do. We also protect abused and neglected children. How do we do that? We are the lawyers for the Department of Health and Human Services, the Child Protective Services Agency. And when kids are mistreated, which sadly happens very, very often in our county, kids aren't getting the food they need, they're not getting the shelter that they need, they're not getting the care that they need to be nurtured. We, on behalf of CPS, DHHS, will step in and petition the family court and ask that the court take jurisdiction over this family. Because our goal is to keep the family together. Our goal is never to break up a family. Our goal is to keep a family together. So we bring all these people into the court and we ask that the judge provide services through the many wonderful agencies that exist in our county, so that the kids can get the care they need and the parents can learn, if necessary, how to provide that care and get this family back on the road to productivity. Sometimes kids are in such bad shape and there's just no hope, we then petition to terminate parental rights. That happens, but that's not the road we want to go down. And that's a last resort. Does it happen? Yes. Should it happen in cases that we do it? We think so. But that's not what we really want. We also have a division that establishes child support for needy children. First of all, the dad sometimes doesn't want to fess up and say he's the dad. So we have to establish paternity. And then we'll seek child support and we'll seek the birthing care and the birthing costs on behalf of the state. We have a whole division down in the McCree building that does that. And lastly, assist victims of crime. I have I think we're up to 5 social workers on our staff who assist victims of crime. And I want to tell you that's not nearly enough. And we're going to get to that when we get to the 400 level of this course. But think about this. If you're the victim of crime, and I hope that you never were and never have been, but if I was once a victim of crime, when I was in private practice, somebody broke into my law office and stole, back then, our archaic computers and a picture of my daughter off a desk because he thought the frame had some value. It's traumatic. You feel violated when you are the victim of crime. If it's your garage that was broken into, or God forbid worse, where your body was invaded, you are traumatized. And then on top of all that, you get a call or something in the mail that says you got to come to court. Well, for those of us who work in the system, it's, hey, no big deal. But for those folks who don't work in the system, think about this. They don't even know where the courthouse is. They don't know where to park when they come downtown. They don't know what courtroom to go to. They don't know what's awaiting them when they get into that courthouse. It's very possible they think some nasty defense lawyer is going to get in my face and start asking me questions that I can't answer. I'm going to get further traumatized because of the very system that seeks to give me justice. So my social workers, our crime victim advocates, are there for them to walk them through every single step of the way. And I want to tell you, these women go beyond the call of duty. They have thousands of cases every year. And maybe all they need to do is give a hug. Well, that hug's delivered, and it's delivered in a timely fashion. These are real stars in my office who people don't even know exist. And I want to just put it out there that they are absolutely indispensable. So what's the role of the prosecutor? Because everybody thinks, well, he's out there to get the bad guys, right? He's out there to make sure that the bad guy's convicted of the crime and sent away to prison for many, many years. I'm here to tell you that's not the job of the prosecutor. The job of the prosecutor is to seek justice, not merely to convict. Now, conviction might be justice in some instances, but not always. And we have gotten to the point in the criminal justice system where we are always looking to right a wrong. We are always looking to get the perpetrator back on the road to productivity. Now, sometimes that's just not possible. Sometimes you have somebody who's, deemed to be sociopathic in their behavior, has a long history of repeated offenses. There's not much you can do. But if somebody is committing crimes over and over because they have some kind of a drug addiction or a mental health issue or traumatic stress from serving in the military on behalf of our beloved country overseas, we try to help them. We have drug courts now. We have a mental health court. We have a veterans court. We have all these diversion type programs that help us keep people out of prison because, we're all paying about $40,000 a year per person to house them at the Department of Corrections. And I think everybody would agree that if we can get somebody back on the road to doing the right thing, that's a lot better investment than it is to spend $40,000 to house them in the Department of Corrections. And the Department of Corrections population has decreased significantly in the last 10 years. I like this one. I show this to kids when I go into the high schools to talk about what I do. Former U.S. Attorney General under FDR, Robert Jackson, who later became a Supreme Court justice, said that the prosecutor has more control over life, liberty, and reputation than any other person in America. His discretion is tremendous. So then I'll say to the kids, why is that? And I will engage them to get them to tell me what they think that means. And the future is bright for Genesee County because some of these high school kids are really sharp and we have these great conversations. Well, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I am going to answer. I'm going to tell you what the kids say because it's the absolute correct answer. Somebody will shout out, I'm not going to get into the college of my choice. Somebody's going to shout out, my folks are going to be pissed at me. Somebody's going to shout out, I have to hire a lawyer and lawyers are expensive. Somebody's going to say, maybe I'm going to get expelled from school. And of course, maybe I'm going to have to go to jail. So the fact of the matter is, as I tell the kids, the pen is mightier than the sword. If I pull out my pen and I sign my name on a warrant and one of their names is on the top of the warrant, I have really messed up their life. Anybody I charge with a crime has problems. And that's why I have to be so careful. That's why the prosecuting authority in any community has tremendous power because they can mess up somebody's life. And woe to making a mistake. The worst thing that I could do, and the one thing that keeps me awake at night, and I sleep pretty good, is to charge an innocent person with a crime. I never want to do that. I'd rather let 100 guilty people go free than for one innocent person to be condemned. That's why it's so important to be careful in what we do. We have ethical duties in our charging. We have to be careful in the discretion when we issue. We must and always do turn over exculpatory evidence, evidence that suggests the accused person did not commit the crime. That's what exculpatory evidence is, to the defense. And we have to dismiss the case when warranted. Exculpatory evidence turnover in a discovery process is a case called Brady versus Merrill. It's a famous US Supreme Court case. And the court said years ago, you have to do it. And the most famous case of a prosecutor who didn't properly do it is the Duke University lacrosse team case. Maybe some of you remember that from some years ago. The prosecutor there was up for re-election, and he had charged all these guys on the Duke lacrosse team with a sexual assault of a woman. And then it turned out that there was some exculpatory evidence that came into him. He took that evidence and put it in his drawer. He did not turn it over. Eventually it got out. Eventually all the charges were dismissed. And that prosecutor not only was not reelected, he was disbarred, as he should have been. So that's the kinds of things that you have to be so very careful about and diligent about. And I want to say this, the job has gotten more difficult. Now, I think in my 19 years on the job, I've gotten better at it. But the job itself has gotten more difficult. And I wrote a memo to the Board of Commissioners, which I'm going to give to them shortly. And in that memo, I point out in just one aspect how the job's gotten more difficult. And I want to read this to you. So just give me this moment to read this to you. Fields of study such as forensic anthropology, forensic pathology, genetics, toxicology, cell phone analysis, and triangulation, financial analysis, social media data mining, neurobiology of trauma, and the anatomy of strangulation are but a few areas in which modern prosecutors must become experts, in addition to being legal experts. With police agencies also suffering from loss of experience in recruitment and retention issues, prosecutors are forced into the untenable position to involve themselves in guiding the investigation. Such activity is not covered under our prosecutorial immunity until a case is charged. This all makes the cases linger longer in the system. My point to you is this: we have to do so much more than we've had to in the past. And the resources that we have to do them with are less than they were in the past. I have fewer prosecutors on my staff today than when I started back in '05. And this is a national dilemma that's coming. And we're ground zero. But what happens to an overworked prosecutor? An overworked prosecutor makes mistakes. And as we suggested earlier, when an overworked prosecutor makes mistakes, the wrong people either get charged or don't get charged. And nothing good comes of it. So we're seeing this across the country. It used to be that lawyers would take public service jobs like being an assistant prosecutor, knowing they would be paid less. Nobody gets rich in government. But they also knew they would have good health insurance for themselves and their families. And they also knew that they would have a defined benefit pension at the end of their service, right? Well, I'm here to tell you, those days are long gone. Genesee County stopped the defined benefit pension before I was elected. And they just took us off Blue Cross because they wanted to go to a less expensive plan. All of which is an admirable thing for the budget watchers to do. But when I try to hire people to become assistant prosecutors, it makes it much more difficult because the salary's low, the benefits are just not what they once were. So not only is Genesee County having a difficult time, Wayne County's having a tough time. Counties across Michigan are having a tough time getting lawyers to take prosecutor jobs. The average pay of a new lawyer in Michigan is $85,000. Genesee County pays $63,000 to be a new prosecutor. And when you come in, you're coming into a place where you're going to have 200 files apiece, minimum. You know what? The New York City, Manhattan lawyers were complaining about having when they had this number. They had 100 files apiece, and they said that was too many. So we're in a tough time here. It's not just Genesee, but it's across the state and the nation. This is what I would ask of you. If you see your county commissioner, if you know your county commissioner, tell them please adequately, not lavishly, but adequately fund the prosecutor's office. I thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions? I'll come around with the mic.
Of all those cases that you say you have, how much of that is repeat offenders percentage?
I can't give you a percentage off the top of my head, but quite a few. We see a lot of repeat offenders. We call them, in the system, they're called habitual offenders. In my office, we call them frequent flyers.
So the lowering sentencing and those kind of things, isn't that going to exacerbate that?
I don't necessarily think so. A lot of these habitual offenders come from the days before we had these diversion programs, these programs that would help them out. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I had somebody, some lawyers come in, and there were some methamphetamine addicts who committed a heinous crime. They didn't kill anybody. They didn't do an armed robbery, but it was a bad enough crime. And it was clear to all of us that it was the addiction that fueled them to do this crime. And the lawyers were asking, well, can't you send them to a program? And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm willing to give them a chance to go to a program. And so that's how we ended this up. But I said, I like the carrot and the stick approach. So what we're going to do here, if they agree, but obviously defendants have to agree, is that I'm going to let them go to the program, and then they're going to be on probation when they get out of the program for the maximum, which is 3 years. If at any point during that 3 years they violate the terms of their probation, they are automatically signing up for 57 months in prison. And they're going to know that right up front. So you got the carrot and you got the stick. If they end up in prison, they have only one person to blame, and that's themselves. So we're giving them the opportunity to get off the addiction. But if they don't make the most of it, then they're going to have to suffer the consequences. I like that approach when I see somebody who I think we can help, but you never know. You never know for sure. Good question.
Question about the diversion programs. Do the victims have a say so on whether or not they are allowed?
By constitution and statute, victims have to be notified of what's happening in their case. So my social workers, my crime victim advocates, keep them very up to date on what's happening, and they have input. But do they have the final decision on it? No, final decision is mine. But we try to involve them in it. You'll find that there are some victims who, want the maximum penalty, no matter what it is. And then there are victims who say, you know what, give the guy a chance.
So going back to your story that you told about the chance for their addiction. When they come out of the addiction program, what kind of supports are available to help them stay clean? Because I know with addiction, it's not always an issue with the fire, but sometimes it's just the addiction is really strong.
Right, yeah, but after they come out of the residential program, then through the Office of Probation or the drug court, they are paired up with somebody who is their mentor, if you will, and they have to check in weekly. They have to be drug tested without any knowledge up front, and they are hopefully given. We have places now where we can get them employed, make sure they have housing. So all of the necessary structure is there to help them succeed. Do they always succeed? No. In our drug court, we have about a 50% success rate, I think it is. But Those 50% are 50% of people who are no longer committing crimes.
Yeah, how's the program, the ghost program, and the women and being held against their will?
Yeah, so the GHOST program is Sheriff Swanson's program, whereby he and his team are on the internet looking for posing as underage people who then get solicited by these folks who troll the internet. The cases come to us after the individuals are arrested. We review the cases like any other case. We make a determination as to whether these folks, whether we have enough evidence to win a case in court, or we make a decision whether these people should be rehabilitated. Have they all gone to prison? No. Have some of them gone to prison? Yes. It's a successful program. It's gotten some perpetrators out of our community and out of our state. So I'm a supporter of it. But it's like the waves on the ocean. They keep crashing and there's just no let up. But it's a successful program.
David, could you comment on the driving under the influence offenses? Might be better for judges to do this, but the most recent one, this guy, Croydon Ruse, killed 2 people. He had 3 prior convictions for DUI. Why wasn't he in prison?
I think you're talking about the case that occurred on 75, just south of Beecher Road, and the victim was from Flushing. Yeah, it's a very, very tragic set of circumstances. He wasn't in prison because the penalties for drunk driving are not that intense. And I don't believe he ever had a felony conviction for drunk driving. I think this is the same person who we had him arrested a couple of years back, and we thought it was a drunk driving third, and we wrote it as the felony. But when we got to court, his brother showed up. You're the first people hearing this. His brother showed up and testified that the brother was in fact driving the car. So the brother then took the rap for the drunk driving, and I then charged the other guy with lying to the police. Otherwise, this would have been his 4th drunk driving. We always have to prove the case in court. You know, when people think about that, it means you got to get a real witness sitting on a witness stand under oath saying the things we need that person to say. This time around, this fellow you're talking about was drunk, 0.33, I believe, going the wrong way on I-75. I charged him with 2nd-degree murder, not drunk driving causing death, which is a maximum penalty of 15 years. I charged him with 2nd-degree murder, which is a life offense, not without parole, but a life offense. We have in my office what I call a 3-strike rule. It's not 3 strikes that you've done it before. It's 3 things you do during a drunk driving. So he's drunk, he's going the wrong way on the highway, and he was speeding. That's 3 strikes right there. To me, that's 2nd-degree murder. That's willful and wanton misconduct, resulting in the death of another human being. It's a terribly tragic case. Drunk driving is another issue that I worry about, because innocent people get killed. When you have these shootings that you hear about, a lot of times they know each other, but drunk driving victims, they're always innocent victims.
Question on that, Nick, was that charged, is it 1 charge or 2? You killed 2 people.
It's 2 counts, one for each person.
This issue of discretionary decision making must be a difficult part of doing this job. I can kind of hear it as you're talking about this particular case. And I'm wondering if you can kind of talk about that some more. What's interesting to me is in the area of those of us that have been involved in civil disobedience and how prosecutors approach some of our who are protesting laws that we think are not correct. How does a prosecutor approach
Well-
Your records out?
You're correct in that the prosecutor has great discretion. And that was similar to what President Clinton said to me when I got to meet him some years ago. He said, a lot of discretion in that job, don't you? And I said, yes, sir, Mr. President. He said, Hillary always wanted to be a prosecutor. That's the job. I mean, I weigh decisions every single day. I have to make decisions that affect people's lives. And it's one of my assistants once said to me, heavy is the head that wears the crown. It can be burdensome at times. And I'm fortunate in that I have a wonderful staff of attorneys who give me tremendous and accurate advice. And I lean on them. I mean, I don't do it by myself. I'm the face of the office, but I seek out opinions of my people. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? One of my assistants that sits right in front of me, she's not on the criminal side, she's on the civil side, Ashley. She knows I stand in her doorway all the time and I say, what do you think about this? I go home at night and I ask my wife, who's not a lawyer, but and sees the world much differently than I do. But I like getting her opinion, not that I always follow it, but I do sometimes. But I like the variety of opinions because it helps me. The other thing I do to get to decision making is I read a lot. I read like 6 newspapers a day, not cover to cover, but I pick out articles because I get ideas from them and I see how things are being handled elsewhere. So I like a variety of opinions, a variety of articles, and then ultimately I have to make the decision. And I guess if the decisions were poor, I wouldn't be standing here right now. So, and I do it in moderation, because I'm a believer that life should be lived in moderation. You shouldn't overdo anything. I'm kind of a middle of the road person, and I think it's been good for the county because what you don't want is a prosecutor who's hell bent on, getting the bad guys. That can't be the mindset, in my opinion, of a prosecutor. You have to have somebody who craves justice, who wants to do the right thing. And that helps me get to where I need to get. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. I have a question about the performance. You're probably the only prosecutor in the country that is not going to be Donald Trump. Have you explained yourself?
Actually, Gassan, yes, I can. I couldn't find any jurisdiction over him that he committed any crimes here. Because had he, I would have had a decision on my hands. I will say that I am against insurrection and I believe wholeheartedly in democracy.
Anticipate new state non-legislation will affect.
Well, I testified on behalf of the Prosecuting Attorneys Association on the safe storage bill. I've had too many cases in Genesee County where young people get guns that weren't properly stored. Sometimes they're laying on the bed, sometimes they're on a night table, sometimes they're in an unlocked cabinet. And youngsters are shooting either themselves or their best friends. I mean, I've had all of that. One recently. So I think the state storage bill will help lessen the number of cases we have. Will it eliminate it? No. Bad guys are always going to get guns. And I know the argument from some folks who think these bills are bad. But I think any legislation that's not overboard, and these are not overboard in any way, shape, or form, will help us reduce the number of gun crimes. When we were discussing the safe storage bill at the Prosecuting Attorneys Association, many of my colleagues were against it, and many of them are from rural counties. And they said, well, I leave a shotgun by the back door so my kids can go out in the back, and go hunting or whatever. And I said, that's not exactly what we're looking for here. And we eventually got to a compromise. And I think that's what these bills are. They're a compromise of those people who are totally opposed and those people who wanted a lot more. And that's what good government is to me, compromise. That's why I think this whole debt ceiling bill is a good thing, because the progressives didn't get what they wanted and the right wingers didn't get what they wanted. You got something in the middle. That's what government is supposed to be about, in my humble.
Got one remaining question.
You mentioned the drug courts and mental health courts. What do you think we can do about the disconnect between like the mental health issues and the FBI background checks? I mean, it's pretty obvious that a lot of crimes are committed by people with mental health issues. Why are they not reported so that when they do a background check, it's a real background check? I'm not against background checks. Most people know I'm a gun guy. The background checks are good, but if they're not thorough, why? And the mental health is the biggest issue with in that this.
I'm with you. I think we have to do a thorough background check regarding mental health cases, because so many shootings that I have to prosecute are done by people who have mental health issues. We just had one yesterday, and I'm pretty sure the guy had a mental health issue. I mean, what we do is we send him down to the forensic center. But, you have the laws get made in Lansing and in Washington, D.C., and you have these divergent opinions. And until we can get both of these divergent opinions agreeing on the fact that we have to totally do a background check on mental health issues, we're not going to get to where we need to get. But that's what it's going to take. So the more people who tell their reps and their state senators and their U.S. congressmen and their U.S. senators, I want background checks on mental health for gun issues, that's what it's going to take to get where we need to get to reduce the number of these horrible crimes that we see. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you again to Prosecutor Layton for joining us here today, especially on short notice. But it was an engaging presentation, informative, and clearly had a lot of interaction and interest in the audience as well. As one way of saying thank you for your efforts today, the Rotary Club of Flint is making a donation in your name towards the eradication of polio. So thank you. Thank you also to everybody who stepped up in service this week, and for folks on Zoom. I saw Lynn waving at you, and so we'll all wave at you from Zoom. Glad to have you. And so thank you to Dominique for a speaker introduction, Ashley for your inspirational message. Thank you to Rob Jewell for your setup and takedown service, Becky for the bulletin notes, and always the faithful Terry helping at the registration desk, as well as to Mike Chafee for stepping in for Fred on the raffle. Next week, please plan to join us back here on June 9th, and we'll be hearing from former President Roxanne Kane, who will be sharing about the Detroit Lions with us. So something to look forward to for football season. Thank you all so much for being part of it today, and we are adjourned.